You're listening to the LouCity and Racing Players Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Tea Time with T and Kiwi. We have another very special guest with us today, the man behind the scenes, president himself, Mr. James O'Connor. Sir, welcome. How you doing?
Good to meet you.
Good. What kind of kicks you got on today? Nice ones. I'm only asking because on, was it Friday, when you did the interview on the field, he was pinging balls. He was showing now how to ping balls after with his nice shoes on.
I know you didn't want to, but you had to.
Well,
you had to.
I should have got my boots for that. Ping is a very polite description, but yeah, the intent was there.
Still got it.
I still got it. Definitely got it. No, I was kind of fuming after a little bit.
Yeah.
Kind of starts off.
So I guess we'll go back. Like, where did you grow up? Like in Ireland, obviously, and then.
Yeah, so little town called Bray, County Wicklow, 14 miles south of Dublin. I have three younger brothers, so Daniel, Gary, and Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah.
How come you didn't get into hurling or Gaelic football?
I played hurling and Gaelic for school, and I got sent off from both. So ironically, when I was playing for Stoke, I would go home and I would play with my brothers. And we're playing one particular game and the ref ended up sending me off. And I was like, I couldn't quite understand why he'd sent me off. I mean, as you can see, it's a pretty physical game. Yeah. But so my brothers, we would still have a bit of crack when I would go back and we would play. And then with hurling, I got a stick in the back of the leg, but the guy made no attempt to actually play the ball. So as you bend down to scoop it up, my standing leg, he put it back on the back of my calf. And I was only playing to miss skill.
Yeah.
Like, I was a kid. And like, I wasn't overly interested in hurling. It was like, okay, I missed skill. But when I came down on the back of my leg, I thought, okay, this is serious now. Because I love my soccer, you know. So, safe to say there was a bit of a brawl after that.
For us,
American.
less knowledgeable,
Yeah, that's true.
what is Gaelic and hurling?
So, do you want to explain one of them? I'll explain the other.
Yeah, so hurling is like, it'll be similar to lacrosse, only on a much bigger field. But it would probably be a little bit more aggressive than lacrosse.
Okay.
No net, though. So you throw it up and you hit it like a baseball almost to your teammate.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, there'd be the goals would be almost like rugby goals, and the bottom part of the rugby goal would have a net, and then over the bar. So if it goes over the bar, you get 1 point, and if it goes into the net, you get 3 points.
Okay.
But you're talking 15 versus 15 on a
Big field.
basically like a rugby field.
Yeah. And then Gaelic football, same sort of thing with a soccer ball, right? Soccer ball?
Yep.
And you can kick it, throw it,
Whatever.
same thing. But if you score in the goal, for
It's almost like a mix of soccer and Aussie rules.
yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the Aussie rules would play Gaelic. So there used to be this competition where the AFL is the AFL. They would play the Gaelic guys, and they were always interesting games. Yeah.
Those AFL guys are freaking animals. Okay, so then you grew up just south of Dublin.
Yep.
What team did you grow up supporting?
As a kid, it was Man U and Celtic.
That's right.
Interesting.
So yeah, I love.
What about
but Man U
local
were. I mean, our local team, Bray Wanderers. They actually won the cup in 90 or 91, but everybody in Ireland supports Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal. So my brother supports Arsenal. Other brother pretended to support Blackburn the year they won it. And then after that, he disappeared. Then two of our mates are massive Liverpool fans.
Really?
But then at 16, I went to England, and then that's where it was like, it was purely my own career, and I wasn't interested in.
Yeah.
What about now? Do you support any team now?
I really like Stoke. I had I had just under 8 years there, and Amy's family are from Stoke, so I look for the teams that I played for. Stoke and Burnley would be the two that I would really keep track of. I played for obviously West Brom and Sheffield Wednesday, and you hope they do well, but Stoke would be the one that I would be very active in checking and getting a little irritated if they don't win. Yeah.
Where are they in now?
They're in the championship. Yeah, they've had some changes. So they've hired a new coach, so hopefully they'll
And they don't know
figure
right
it
now?
out. Well, hopefully, yeah.
Wait, so transition into that. Can you tell us about a little bit about your career, soccer career?
Yeah, I mean, at 16, I went over to Stoke. I mean, I wasn't the most talented player. I played with a lot of players that were very talented. But my skill set was more the ability to run and mentally be very tough. And I was aggressive. You know, I had a lot of yellow cards in my first year. I had 15 yellow cards in my first year.
In how many years?
Well, you play a lot of games. So that would probably have been about 46, 47 games.
Oh, that's
like
completely fine.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's not
15,
too bad.
40
That's not too
games.
bad.
Yeah,
1 in every 3 is not too bad.
that's not bad at all.
So then I guess you've played with a lot of great players and against great players. Was there one that stands out that you were like, I can't get near him?
There was more than one because I wasn't very good. There was, I mean, look, I was fortunate. I played against some really good players. Like, Ronaldo's probably the most famous. Then you've got Lampard. Is probably people are really surprised by how tough he was.
Yeah,
because I remember flying into him thinking I'd test him and
Nothing.
didn't flinch.
not get close.
You know.
Yeah.
And then do you remember Emmanuel Petit?
Yeah, I do.
So both of them, their distances in the midfield were exceptional. So like normally I would be able to get after people and get a tackle in, but their distances were always so good you couldn't get near them. You could never get close to them.
Just moving the whole time.
I mean, it was just. And then Nicky Butt, his awareness, like those lads at Man United, you could never get close. You know, you think you're going to get in close to them, and they
Bounce
see
it
you.
away,
Yeah. And just as you get close, it just they pop it away. And then all they're trying to do is pull you out of your slot. And as you get older, you realise it. But I mean, it's like at the time,
You're just locked in there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Do you with the great debate then, Lampard, Scholes, and Stevie G? Do you have one that?
For me, Scholes would be the one. I just, when you look at his ability to do everything, you know, Lampard from a goal scoring perspective was off the charts. But if you look at Scholes' ability to dictate the tempo of the game, and you could never get near him.
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's the biggest reason why Man U are where they are now, because since he's gone, obviously Fergie's left too, but they've never replaced that player in there.
Well, culturally, I think if you look at what they were culturally, and then Ferguson left, and then you know they've obviously gone through a load of different coaches. They've spent $1 million, but culturally that's not the same. You had multiple winners.
Yeah.
If you look at that team or those teams, they had multiple iterations to Ferguson, but the one thing they always had was a burning desire to win, and they had very, very high standards.
Yeah.
But there was a competitive edge with all of those players that doesn't exist there anymore. And you can see because the results are out the air and they're shadowing themselves.
Yeah, I'm a Chelsea fan, so I look at the same thing. It's like I look back at that like team in 2010. Around then, you had like 7 or 8 national team captains on it.
Yeah,
and you wonder why didn't matter who the coach was. They were going to
mentality. You look at that group and you look at the really strong mentality, high standards in training.
Yeah,
you know. There's a reason teams will be serial achievers, you know, and it's because of the mentality and standards, you know, the togetherness and the culture, and
when the players are driving it themselves too.
Well, that's what makes it, you know. So you go back to that era, you John Terry, you Lampard, with Man United, you got Roy Keane, you got Steve Bruce, you got serial like leaders that are driving standards, and I think that's probably the biggest piece to it. Is like, you know. People will talk a lot about culture, and people will say they want to win, but you know sometimes they aren't prepared to do what it really takes to win. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of
answered a lot of questions there.
Did answer a lot of questions. Well, that's it, guys. No, I mean we can transition that into what we're going to ask about. What makes a club successful, technically, and like. You are the man behind the scenes, and so we're going to ask you, what type of players do you look for when you want to bring in and set the culture that you have set here at Louisville? Like I tell the story about Paulo ripping me the first time I played roundos because I thought we were just messing around. And he was pissed when I gave up the first ball, and he set the standard for me right there and then. And so how do you get players to buy into that, and what type of players do you look for when you do that?
But I think that is historically on the LouCity side, we've always had that. You know, we've always had players that have what we've just spoke about, the right mentality, high standards in training, the ability to lead the locker room. And I think that's probably the greatest strength that we have, is the strength of character of the individuals that are within the environment. So, yes, we've got very talented players, but talented players aligned with huge desire, aligned with great mentality, become serial winners.
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece that we need to keep going. You know, again, easy to say, not so easy to actually get and then maintain. And, you know, even the standards piece, like I expect, I'm a few minutes late to this, so I own it, and I expect to be fined or whatever it is that's part of it.
I already
you know,
mentioned
so-
it.
Whoa.
But this is part of it.
We'll let Niall decide.
Well, I'm a bit worried about that, but you get my point. It's like we all hold each other accountable, regardless of whatever it is you are. You
Top
know,
to bottom,
and
yeah.
it's important. You know, so there's a way to do things, and there's a way to do things correctly. You know, and that stems from John Neese all the way through ownership, board, all the way down. You know, and we all take great pride in not just on the field but off the field. There are multiple aspects to real community engagement that we can all point to. You know, we had a lady at the last game come up to me, and her son is just recovered from cancer, and I got introduced to her and her family and to the young boy. And then Brian was here, so I went and got Brian, and Brian went over, and it absolutely made the night for the boy and for the family. But it's aspects like that we all take great pride in, and you lads are phenomenal at doing that. You know, you give up a lot of time to go into the hospital, to go and visit kids, whether it's at school or wherever it is, and that's what makes it meaningful to all of us, because it's authentic and it's genuine and it's impactful, and I think people can see that.
No, I mean, to me, when I was training as a youth and my coach would bring in like a pro player and everything, everybody would be talking about it for months, and like something I'll never forget. So seeing the kids when they light up, when they see us and everything, it's the same feeling. And it makes our day just as much as it makes their day. So it's always fun.
Well, I mean, even so, Sheffield United, so I was playing for a team in Dublin called St. Joseph's. So Sheffield United were coming over, and I used to have to get the bus to training into Dublin. So Tuesday and Thursday we would train. So the guy from Sheffield United was coming over, and he was going to put a session on. So I was desperate to be a soccer player, and I saw this as my chance to try to impress him. And as I'm walking down the road, it's like a T-junction, and I can see a double-decker bus go past. Well, I thought that was my bus. So I sprinted. So the bus would go left, go off in through some of the different estates, and then come back and then pick up the main road. So I set off chasing this bus, because I'm thinking, if I miss this bus, I'm not going to be there for training. And anyway, I leg it after this bus, and I get down probably half a mile down, and I get to the bus stop, and I'm out of breath, and I don't know whether I'm going to make the bus or not, because it's going to rejoin that road. So it rejoins the road, and I'm still out of breath, and I'm getting onto it, and just thinking, thank God I've made the bus. But he'd gone early, so I wasn't late. Like he was early, and he'd left. So as I'm getting onto the bus, I'm like, hey man, like, why are you leaving so early? He went, early? He said, I'm running 20 minutes late. He said, the other bus is still back there. So it was the bus that was running late that I thought, and I ended up making it. And I just look at it, and it was the small things, because Sheffield United were there, and I saw that as my chance to potentially make an impression. I mean, I'd love to have seen how quick I was running, because I tell you, I was running like a lunatic down the road. But it goes back to being impactful, because that meant the world to me. Like, I'd have chased that bus all the way there if I had to. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's something that, from an ownership perspective, certainly from our perspective with Danny and everyone, is the ability to bring a little bit of joy to, whether it's children or the community or whatever it is something that we want to be intentional about trying to do.
I think it's nice for them. Like I was always told in my academy, it's like, it's not like for those kids to be able to stand on the shoulders of the giants in front of them, and we are that, so they can see where they can get to.
Absolutely.
So it's like the same sort of thing, you know, for what we can do for the kids in the community and the academy and everything.
Well, and for them, you inspire them, you know, and you become role models, which is as you become a parent, that becomes really important.
Yeah.
It's
It's like us coaching, right?
I was just about to say that what Guillermo and Paulo started.
Yep.
How we go and coach out twice a week.
Yeah.
The 4 of us do it for a week, and you see the kids light up and everything.
Oh yeah,
and they have so much fun.
Everything to them.
Yeah, every time I ask, at least when I went out, the coach is like, that's the best they've trained.
Yeah.
Well, I go and ask the other guys who go out and coach, they say the exact same thing. It's like the best they've trained all year.
Yeah, they'd be trying to make an impression, and which is inspiring.
Changes a lot.
I guess with that, this is a question that Mr. Simon Bird gave me to ask. He said you got a story maybe for us about the hardest manager you've ever had.
The hardest manager? Yeah. There's a couple of things I can't really say, but the hardest manager, I'd say, one of the hardest managers was probably Gary Megson. So pre-season was tough, and we had AD was the performance coach at the time, and we trained in the morning, and there's an area in Birmingham called Sutton Park, and I'd been told that we were going to go on like a 10-mile run, and I thought, what the lads are like, 10-mile run.
Wind you up a little bit.
Of course, it'd be 10 normal. So we drive to this park, and we're getting out, and now it's starting to get real, because I'm looking at the size of this place, and I'm thinking, there's every chance we actually could be doing a 10-mile run here. So we get out of the car, we walk over, AD comes over, Gaffer comes over, and he's like, okay, right, you're going to run, and you're going to run for an hour straight, and you're not going to stop. So now you're thinking, like, this is serious. We're running here.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, AD gets to the front, hits the stopwatch, and goes.
You have to keep up pace.
And we ran for 60 minutes around Sutton Park, having trained in the morning. So we're running and we're going through all different speeds. So you go from like a jog to increase the pace to, and I remember thinking to myself, we're really going to run for an hour here. And I kid you not, we ran for an hour. And if you got lost or you got left behind, it wasn't like, we're going to slow down. And I always remember Siku. He was one of the French centre-backs, and he's dragging at the back, and he just got left, And we all finished the run, and Siku wasn't there. And we're all like, okay, well, where's Siku? It's like, yeah, well, okay, I guess he didn't make it. And this is like a huge park. This is like a 10-mile park. And this kid didn't speak English.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, what are we going to do here? And everyone was like, okay, right, see ya.
They left? No.
I got into the car, and he was left. And I was smiling to myself. It was like ruthless.
Yeah.
It was like the expectation is
Keep up.
you're going to keep up. Yeah. And if you don't keep up, well,
all right.
That's up to you to figure it out.
Yeah.
Did he make it back eventually or what?
Well, we saw him, but
he was there tomorrow at training.
I don't know how we got back, but I mean, you look at it, and that's maybe one instance, But mentality. Yeah. And that was where, to be fair to Gary Megson, he had a really strong mentality. In that group that we had, they had leaders and they had mentality, but the expectation was you were going to meet the standard. And if you met the standard, you got to stick around.
Yeah.
And if you didn't meet the standard, you left real quick.
Just get bought in or you get left behind.
Yeah. It was
same type of stuff.
Now, it was probably a little extreme, but you get my point.
Yeah.
We get saved by the GPS numbers now.
Oh, my. I used to hate those things. Now it's like, okay, they're actually kind of just a little bit.
Sports science saved us.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was a form of sports science back then. It was a bit different. Yeah.
I remember what Nas said about their preseason. James, we got to talk about that, by the way, because there's some controversy.
So, obviously, Paulo and Niall told us some stories about Florida IMG.
Mm-hmm.
There was word from Niall that he said that you guys didn't touch the ball for 2 weeks. Would you like to elaborate?
I'll happily. I'm
He's
very happy to set the record straight. So they had a ball in, I would say, 95% of the sessions. There was 2 running sessions. There was the one that we were doing a Saturday morning, which was the only totally pewless one, which was like you went 5 back, 10 back, 15 back, 20 back, 25 back. And you had 30, I think it was 35 or 36 seconds to get in. but you two would be together.
Mm-hmm.
So you would go,
yeah.
and then you would be running straight after Kyle. But basically, it was like you got 1-to-1 rest, but you did 10 of them. So it was a tough run.
Yeah.
But the principle would be that if anybody didn't get in, we would all train Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're building mentality
yeah.
and you're building a group dynamic. But what you found was the boys then started to lead the session.
They'd push each other.
Because they wanted Sunday off.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have to say a word.
Yeah.
The lads would be screaming at each other to make sure they got over the line, because they knew if they didn't, we were all training Sunday.
Yeah.
And they knew we would be training Sunday.
Yeah.
So, but that was one where they did run. And then there was the 300s that they would have to do, that they would run. But all the other sessions, they would have a ball.
Yeah.
They would run with the ball.
The ball wasn't.
The ball was there. There was different drills. I mean, the one that they didn't like was it'd be 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So we'd have an area probably, 15 by 20. And you had to go as quick as you can for 30 seconds with the ball. And then you were rest for 30 seconds. But you would do that for like 6 minutes. So, and then you would go into a passing drill.
Yeah.
But then the passing drill after that would be where you've got 2 balls going in the passing drill. So like it was
You
active.
get in there, you get another ball.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, but what you were building, and then you would go into 1v1s, 2v2s, 3v3s, and we would start small and then we would extend out. But my preseason was probably a little bit different in so much as we wouldn't play a game until day 12.
Yeah.
So, and then in day 12, you would only play 45 minutes. But the first 11 days,
Build that fitness and
you were
mentality.
doing mentality, you were doing double sessions, and it was tough.
I mean,
First session was 8 o'clock, and breakfast would be 6:30. It's the same thing. If 6:30, if somebody shows up late after 6:30, and there's going to be a consequence. So again, all the boys get each other up, and everyone's there at 6:30. So I would use that as a way to build the group dynamic. And a lot of the boys didn't really understand it. It wasn't really about, it wasn't about the running.
fitness,
It wasn't about, being like on time. It was about building the mentality and building a culture that everyone can hold each other accountable.
Mhm.
And, for a lot of the lads, it was great for them and great for us, and, it put us in a good spot. But I think going back to building culture and building mentality, you need to be really intentional about how you do it.
Yeah.
And that was part of it, was how we would do it.
All right, Niall. Over exaggerating like
Yeah, I
always a
know.
little
Yeah.
bit. We're gonna have to work with
I
you
actually
tomorrow.
another question, I guess, a follow up on that is, so they was telling a story about how you just took off one time from the gym,
That's true.
and you said if anyone loses to
And
you,
I meant it. I took off. So the first session was always a gym session. So
Mhm.
basically, but it was a tough session. So they had to do, I would say to the lads, okay, you're going to be tested. So it was like, I think it was like 2-minute plank, 1 minute rest, 2-minute plank. You had to bench press your own body weight 10 times, and you had to do 12 wide arm pull-ups. Basic stuff.
Yeah.
You know. But if you couldn't do that, you weren't coming to Florida. So this was for everyone. It didn't matter who you were. That was the rules. But then we would always arrive Sunday. Monday morning was a gym session, and a gym session was a tough session. Like, it was a mix of where IMG was. We had a mix where you could do work with weights, but you'd also do a bit of cardio, and it was a tough session.
Yeah.
So they'd finish the session, but where we were all staying was in the villas, so it was decent enough sort of stretch. So the lads are all putting their shoes on and everything else. And I said, okay. I said, we're going to run back to the villas. And everyone was always frustrated because they just wanted to walk. They didn't want to run, but mentality. So it was like, okay. So we're putting shoes on. And I said, and by the way, I said, if you all don't beat me back to the villas, we're going to be running. And I just took off. And I tried as quick as I could to get there. And I swear it was like a herd of like cheetahs coming after me. They all came flying past. And they got past me and got into the gate. But again, for us, it was like, from a coaching perspective, it was like, you want to see what you've got.
Yeah.
You want to see what kind of mentality, because you could have got a couple of people that would have said, "Oh, okay, I'm not going to do it."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it would have been interesting for me to have to manage.
Yeah.
You know, but thankfully, everyone got up
Took off,
and
yeah.
they got past me, which I would have loved had they not, because I would have taken great satisfaction. And
Fascinating.
oh yeah, you know, but there was just little things like that. Again, as we would build culture and build mentality, it's the importance of training, and it's not just with the ball. You need to prepare for different scenarios, because you know, we all know that the game isn't always going to be plain simple. There are going to be things that happen that you have to react to. There's always going to be adversity, so it's always how do you react.
It's like Daniel says, problem solving.
Yeah, it's how do you react. You know, you want to cry and make excuses, or do you want to just fix it, figure it out, and then once we've won the game, we can have a chat about it.
Yeah,
win the game.
Yeah,
you know,
and then figure it out.
Find a way.
Yeah.
Did you know you wanted to be a coach after playing? And how is that transition, being from a player to a coach, and then a coach into where you are now?
Great question. So I was doing my coaching licenses when I was 22, 23. So UEFA B, UEFA A. And then I was one of the youngest to do the UEFA Pro license. So I always wanted to go into coaching. And that was something I was really intentional about doing. I didn't want to get to 35 and then say, okay, I'm going to, you know, spend the next 5 years going and getting your licenses, because back then it would take 18 months or 2 years to get some of these licenses. So I was really intentional about building that up. So I went and did all those licenses, and then I was in Orlando as the player assistant with Adrian Heath. They were going MLS, and then Louisville was starting and taking the USL franchise. So that's ultimately how I ended up coming here as the head coach. And then obviously went back to Orlando, which, you know, looking back was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. But then that's ultimately how I ended up in this particular role, because then it was like I'd always gotten on great with John, and had huge respect for John and his family. So we'd always kept in touch. And then it was like, John was like, well, look, we've got a different project here. We've got academy that we want to launch. We've got the training ground we need to source. We need to get going. We've got the women's team we want to get going. Brad has got so much going on at the time. Brad Estes was the president. So the role in coming back was to launch some of that. And then Brad got a wonderful opportunity for himself to go back into the medical field. So he went back into that. And ultimately then it was like, okay, well, you're going to step up and take on this role. So there's great people here. Yeah. And that's probably the bit that is the biggest factor. Like John is like a dad to me, you know. The ownership group have been phenomenal, and there's a great way of operating, and there's great alignment of values from John, board, ownership group, and ourselves, which has made it easy for me to transition into this type of role. And also the relationship I have with you all and with Danny. Yeah. You know, I'm there to help, but I stay out of the way, you know. And that's probably the best way is you can be a support network and a support structure without wanting to be at the forefront of everything, you know.
It's also probably pretty cool as well when, I guess, John's explaining that to you and seeing what the future project is, where you get to come in and like help shape the stadium, the facility, the women's team, like the academy foundation and all.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at the training ground, and that's something that for all of us we take great pride in, you know, and that was, you know, where we started with the training ground. I mean, it was great that we had a wonderful field, but then the issue with it would flood, and, you know, but we would have to figure out a way where we're going to train. So now we look at it, and, you know, you look at everything that's happening with the training ground, with the involvement of FIFA and everything else, and Eintracht Frankfurt, it's something we all take tremendous pride in.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have that.
Very lucky.
We are. That's testament to John and the ownership group and the financial commitment that they've made, because, I mean, it's phenomenal. It's a world-class training centre.
Yeah. I mean, also I would say as well to you and the 10 years of the guys that put in the work when you guys were playing at the Slugger Field and everything. And I mean, to me, I think you guys earned it to build that facility, winning for the past 10 years and everything.
But that's what makes it special, because I think we look back at our history and we all take tremendous pride, you know, and for the guys that first started back in 2015, again, all the excuses were there. It's okay, we're playing a baseball field. It's like it's grass and it's turf, but the mentality was we're going to win.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that comes down to the players and testament to their character.
Yeah. True. All right. Fun time. Go on.
All right.
Oh,
Fun time.
My favorite time.
Yeah.
My favorite time. So I don't know if you've heard, but Niall has been asking this question a lot this year. Have you heard about this question?
No.
It's his
I
favorite.
dread to think
It's
what
his
this
favorite
question's
question.
going to
It's
be.
his favorite question to ask when we have our little initiation songs, and so we've kind of picked it up on the podcast a little bit.
Okay.
So if you're in the UFC octagon, think about
Yeah, I know
You're
what
in
the
there.
UFC is, yeah.
bare hands.
Yeah.
What is the most dangerous animal that you think you could kill?
just fight to the death.
Fight to the death.
Yeah.
So
Niall special.
we had some funny answers. John said a honey badger. T thinks he can take a hyena.
I definitely can.
Niall thinks a bobcat.
It's impossible.
A bobcat?
Yeah.
Well, what we should do is bring a bobcat down and put him in there with it. I would love to see that.
I am all
So,
for it too.
let's see if we can do that. Let's hold him to it, put him in with the bobcat. Let's see how he gets on.
I am all for that.
My money's on the bobcat.
Yeah, me
That's-
too.
yeah.
Me too.
I think a hog, like a wild, like boar, kind of like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Vicious
agile those are
enough.
in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's an interesting question. Says a lot about Niall.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife Amy absolutely loves animals. Like I'm talking, if there was a fly in the
put you on the
house, it's like you
spot
need to let
here.
the fly out and all the
Yeah.
rest of it. So the idiot, I'm going
Might
to
just
say,
have to
I'd
skip
kill
this
that.
one. Yeah.
And we've got a load of chickens back where we are as well. Like I mean, Amy is animal mad, but yeah. I mean, the macho answer is to say a lion or a bobcat or something like that. I mean, honestly,
We can't put
Put
him on
the
the spot with the
spot,
wife,
yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
no. I'll give you an answer. I just, it's like, what could I kill? I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'll go with Niall. I'll take Niall. I'll go with the
Okay.
panther. I'll go with the
Okay.
European.
Panther. Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, me too.
Put him in there together, go 2-on-2 at the same time.
I'll let Niall go first.
Okay. Now we've got the Fast Five. So favorite soccer player of all time.
Roy Keane.
Great answer.
Mhm.
Great answer. Favorite Louisville restaurant.
Louisville restaurant. There's a few. That's one of the great things about Louisville is there's
It
some
is.
really good restaurants.
Oh, nice.
Favorite one.
Or a favorite.
Do you know what? I'll actually, because my son loves Milano. It's an Italian restaurant off Westport Road, and my son loves that.
Right.
And we'll go in there pretty regularly. So yeah,
I'll
give them a
try
shout.
that.
Yeah, we gotta
You
try
been?
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
No, we're
no,
gonna check it
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
definitely gotta try that.
Oh, I know.
Favorite Netflix show.
Favorite Netflix show, Narcos.
Great. Wait, okay,
Fantastic.
Mexico or the original Colombia?
I love both of them. I mean, probably the first one.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I mean,
original.
I got in
Yeah,
on that.
legendary.
That was like,
That was a great
oh
show.
yeah,
Good.
I was
Good.
fascinated by that.
Yeah.
I was blown away by that.
Mhm.
I mean,
I kind of forget that that's even like a show anymore.
Wow,
There's
it's
so many good
exciting.
shows.
oh, I've watched that a few times because
Yeah.
that's like that whole thing is just. I mean, it's actually scary, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
incredible to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. Do you know what? I never drank for, I mean, it would have been 38, 39. So all when I played, never drank alcohol. And even the first few years when I was coaching, never drank alcohol. So in the last few years that I've started to drink, and I would say only really recently have I started to take some bourbon and try some bourbon.
Did you try that stuff on Sunday night?
I did. Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
know what it was? I was trying to tell T. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
Well, I
Yeah,
heard
it was, I think it was Blade and something.
It was smooth.
But the
but
bourbon
talk to me.
is so now I'm starting to get a little bit in on the bourbon.
the
So
bourbon. It's a spot
Buffalo
for it.
Trace is
Favorite right now?
that goes down really nice. So yeah, that's probably it. Buffalo
All right.
Trace. Yeah.
And then last question: 3 dream dinner guests. They all can speak English,
Alive or past.
and they can be alive or dead. They magically speak English if they don't.
Okay. And I'm assuming they need to be like
It could be anyone.
No, anyone. Yeah.
Anyone.
okay. I would say Roy Keane would be one. Brian O'Driscoll, who's a rugby player in
rugby,
Ireland.
yeah.
Yeah. And then another one. Generally, I'm always really intrigued by competitive sports people that have achieved.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best example of serial winners that's still alive, if you look at Alex Ferguson, he would probably be the other one. Now, trying to get him and Roy Keane would be interesting. But if you look at historical clubs that have had huge success, I mean, what Guardiola's done at Man City has been incredible. Ferguson at Man United, gone back to Shankly, Paisley era at Liverpool. There are clubs that have had people that have
Long term.
I mean, like serial winners over a long term of a really high level, and that really intrigues me. You know, there's some business people that you look at and think, okay, there's some really sharp people, but anyone that's had I would say a longevity of results. I'm always intrigued as to how they've achieved those results.
Yeah.
You know,
For you, do you look at just team sports? Because for me, I was thinking of that. It came to my head as like Roger Federer, someone like that.
yeah, I know. I mean, that's an interesting one. I naturally always look at the group dynamic. So I'm given the fact I've grown up and spent
Team sports.
most of my life in team sports, but the golf, I enjoy golf. The Ryder Cup, I get intrigued by that. Some of the leadership aspects of that have been, so the Europeans took a data approach in the last one, the Molinari brothers. So stuff like that, I get intrigued as to different people will find a nuance that will give them an extra 2% that equates to a result. That's what I get sort of really intrigued and engaged by. I think there are multiple people that do a wonderful job and have a history of achievement. And I think that's probably something that I would, people of that ilk, I would happily, do that with and really enjoy spending some time with.
Nice.
You got the John question?
All right. John left this question for you.
Yeah.
To be fair, he didn't
get hit on all fronts.
He did not know you were going to be our next
Oh,
guest.
yeah.
You're going to
I'm
be surprised
sure.
with the question.
I'm sure.
You're going to be surprised.
So John's question is...
It surprised us.
Very surprising. Who is your favorite rapper of all time?
Who is my favorite rapper of all time? You couldn't ask me. I probably couldn't name 5 rappers. I'm serious. I mean, I'll take the easy way out, Jack Harlan.
That's what John said too.
That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
Jack, podcast, next one.
Yeah. You get him on the next one.
Yeah.
And then this is the final question. You have to leave a question for our next guest. We don't know who our next guest is going to be. We haven't talked about it yet, but
Could be Jack.
Could be anybody. So you have to leave them a question they have to answer, just like John did for you.
Okay. And we don't know who the next person is.
Mm-mm.
I'm telling you, we kind of just make this up as we go.
Okay. Well, I want to try make it where it's somewhat. Let's give them a history question.
Okay. I like
And
that.
let's ask them. So the question I have in mind, but I want to make it. So I'll make it a history question, but I want to make it where it's a little bit challenging for the individual because it may be one of the lads or whoever it is. So I don't want to make it too easy, but I'm thinking. Who did LouCity play in the who did we get knocked out to in the Open Cup in 2015?
Okay.
All right. I don't even know that.
Is the team still around?
Yep.
Because I know there's some teams that have
Yep.
You
folded
can't
since
be
then.
asking that. Don't give it a hint.
Sorry. No, I'm just yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Like that's fair.
All
Sorry.
right. Great question.
Yeah,
We're
good
going to write
question.
that down.
Yeah.
Knocked out 2015. All right.
Well, so we'll see. Whoever it is,
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
see their history. You know?
I guess
Yeah.
that's it for another episode of Tea Time with Tea and Kiwi. We'll see you here next week, maybe next month. We'll figure it out.
We'll see.
Yeah. Thanks,
James. Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much.
Appreciate your
Have a
time.
great day.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the LouCity and Racing Players Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode.